Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy. In today's video, I'm bringing you guys in early players I do not like for fantasy football in 2021. In the video from a couple of days ago, I talked about early players that I love for your 2021 fantasy football drafts. This video will be updated countless times across the offseason. I'll make one now in February, but then in June, July, and August, I will continue to update it as things end up happening, because as of right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the NFL draft, but obviously, future Nick, future you guys in April will know, and the video will be definitely different based upon what happens in the 2021 NFL draft. Before I get into it, I want to ask if that at any point inside this video you end up enjoying it, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win that 2021 fantasy football championship. I also talk about the NFL draft on here, as well as all things surrounding football, so please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Again, what are we talking about? Early players I do not like. I saw this video that the fantasy headliners made about this topic. They talked about players they hated, and they're talking about players that they loved, and that's kind of where this comes from. So if you guys want to check out their video, the link will be down below in the description, cited MLA format. So we're going to talk about a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, as well as tight end in this video. We will begin with the running back, and the running back that I do not like to draft right now, my 2021 fantasy football drafts, is Clyde EdwardsHelaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was running back 22 in PPR last season, as well as running back 22 in half PPR, and he was drafted to potentially be a top 10 guy. Some people saw him even having the potential to be a top 5 guy when it came to fantasy football. He played in 13 games in 2020, rushing the rock 181 total times for 803 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, as well as getting 54 targets for 36 catches for 297 total yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And right now, based on best ball drafts I've been doing, he's been coming off the board as running back 15, running back 14, around that range. So it seems worrisome yet again that we are buying too heavily into a running back that, in my opinion, really just does not have much of a chance to be a running back, a top 12 running back in fantasy football. Now, obviously, he is in the perfect system technically to succeed, right? The Chiefs offense, when you think about that, you cream your pants. You're thinking, this guy's going to score 7 million points. That's why he was boosted up heavily to the heavens last offseason. We were talking about Clyde EdwardsHelaire is going to be skull-fucking these defenses. The Chiefs are going to be unreal. And while the Chiefs were a great team, they made the Super Bowl, Clyde EdwardsHelaire wasn't really all that great. And I think it's because his small size, his small frame will keep him from getting into the end zone in red zone opportunities. He was only given 32 red zone touches all season, ranking 21, shout out to 21 Savage, at the running back position. And you know what? That might sound a little bit high, but when you think about it, if you go back and remember, use your brain, do a fucking rewind to week 1 up against the Houston Texans, Clyde EdwardsHelaire was given so many opportunities on the goal line, in the red zone, and could not get it done. And a lot of these carries, a lot of these 21 carries, or 32 red zone carries that this guy was getting, happened in week 1. So you have to understand that as well. I'm not saying that Clyde EdwardsHelaire is going to be a terrible player, but based upon where he's being drafted right now in most best ball drafts that I have done, I do not want to be drafting Clyde EdwardsHelaire in 2021. I certainly see the upside, but I think it's limited by the fact that it seems like Andy Reid doesn't really want to use Clyde EdwardsHelaire as a workhorse running back. He wants to include Darrell Williams behind him. He wants to include maybe Le'Veon Bell signs back. He wants to include someone behind him. It doesn't really matter who it is, because as long as they're a competent running back, Andy Reid can squeeze all the juice out of them and make sure that they play quite well. So I think Clyde EdwardsHelaire is kind of in a bad situation. Even though he's in a very good situation on the Chiefs, it's just not the right situation for him, in my opinion, to have as much upside. I think the fact that he's kind of shorter really limits him on this Chiefs offense. So I do not like Clyde EdwardsHelaire in 2021. I know this is going to be kind of a hot take, maybe. Some people may be all over Clyde EdwardsHelaire, so let me know down below if you guys are all aboard the CEH train in 2021, because as always, guys, I can definitely be wrong. I say a bunch of shit. Some of it's going to be wrong, but a majority, hopefully, is going to be right. Next up is the wide receiver in here. This is the easiest do not draft player I have ever seen in my life. Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Tyler Lockett's probably going to finish as a top 10 to top 15 wide receiver in fantasy football in 2021. With no doubt in my mind, unless he's injured, knock on wood, we don't want that to happen, he should finish that high. But there is a reason why he finished so high. He finished wide receiver 8 in PPR last season, wide receiver 9 in half PPR. But it's because of these certain games. His total points were carried by a few amazing games. Week 17 against San Francisco, the man dropped 33 PPR points. And most people don't play Week 17. But even if you take that away, Week 7 versus Arizona, if you guys remember that game in that overtime battle between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals, in my opinion, one of the better games of 2020, this man dropped 53 PPR points. 53. And then you're like, oh, those are just some great games. His other games had to have been good for him to finish as a top 10 wide receiver in PPR and half PPR. No, 10 of his 16 games were under 13 PPR points. 7 of those were under 10 PPR points. So when you're really doing the math, this guy is so inconsistent. On playerprofiler.com, if you guys use that website, a lot of people do, you can see on there they have a stat when you click on the game log, and it says what their weekly volatility ranking is. It's out of 10. It's from 1 to 10. This motherfucker literally broke the scale. All right? He needs to get on Weight Watchers because this man broke the goddamn scale and literally finished ahead of 10, above 10. He was the number 1 ranked weekly volatility, having the most weekly volatility on the website at the wide receiver position, which means week in, week out, he's a very volatile player. He might drop 53 points, but he also might drop a deuce right on your chest and score like 9 points. And then you're just going to be so confused because the week before Lockett scored 50 points, or the week before he scored 30 points. Then the next week, he scores 9. And it has nothing to do with matchup either. I've looked at it. He balls out against good teams. He plays like shit against bad teams. He'll ball against a bad team, then play bad against a good team. It's really just up in the air for Tyler Lockett, and strictly based on his inconsistencies, I am not looking for him at all in 2021. DK Metcalf is still there, and in my opinion, DK Metcalf is a much safer player week in and week out than Tyler Lockett, so I will be very heavily fading Tyler Lockett based on where he is going in drafts. And if you draft him, you have to understand that this guy is complete and utter boom or bust on a week in, week out standpoint. So if you guys owned Tyler Lockett last year on your fantasy team, you would know this. My friends talked about this a lot, actually, in our fantasy group chat one time. We talked about how Tyler Lockett is just the most inconsistent player at the wide receiver position because it's not even because the Seattle Seahawks like to run the ball. That's how it used to be. They were still passing the ball a lot, and even in those games, Lockett was having shit-tier games. So I'm really just looking away from Lockett in 2021. At tight end, we have Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos. If you guys have ended up enjoying this video before we get into Noah Fant, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So Noah Fant is not even necessarily a terrible player. I think he actually has a whole lot of skill. He finished as tight end 8 last season, tied with Rob Gronkowski. They both had the exact same PPR points, which is pretty weird. But hey, finished as number 8, and in half PPR was tight end number 12. Now in fantasy football, you're hunting to get a top 5 guy when you're searching deep into the depths of the draft. Because if you hit on like the tight end 12, that's like nothing, really, in reality. A tight end 12 is like 9 points a week. What's that gonna fucking do to you? Or for you? And I think Fant, in the correct situation, with Deshaun Watson being traded there, with a legitimate quarterback, he is going to be fine. But the situation is messed up, like Mike the situation when he drinks a little too much. So I just feel like Drew Lock in this situation is very bad for Noah Fant. He is a very inconsistent player, just like with Tyler Lockett, but with Drew Lock, he is very, very, very hot or cold. He'll start the game off, and if he's playing well, then this is going to be a horse-cock Drew Lock game where he's just slapping the defense up. And then there's other games where you get micro-peen Drew Lock, who plays atrocious and is throwing a million picks. He said something during last season that was so telling of Drew Lock's mindset. He said he released the ball, and he just knew it was going to be a pick, and he just knew it wasn't going to work out that day, and it's just funny, because I think Drew Lock isn't a terrible player, but as long as he plays like Drew Lock has played the last 2 seasons of his NFL career, I do not trust Noah Fant at all, and it's obviously worrisome for guys like Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. Hopefully he's able to pick it up better in 2021, because I feel as though if they don't get Deshaun Watson, what they're talking about, the Denver Broncos are talking about, is just keeping Drew Lock for 1 more year. if they can't bring in Deshaun Watson. So that's likely what we're going to be looking at in 2021 based upon the narrative that Deshaun Watson only wants to go to the Dolphins, the Jets, or the Arizona Cardinals. At least that's what's came out. Not the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers. That's at least what has came out right now. Now, obviously, he could get traded to some random team, and it would not surprise me at all, but that's just what his agent has been saying. So, final player, quarterback. Now, if I'm being honest with you, the fantasy headliners talked about this in their video as well. You can't really hate a quarterback, right? Because as long as you don't draft one super early, then you're never really going to miss. Sure, some of these guys are going to hit way better, right? A guy like in the past, like when you get Matt Ryan in like the 10th round, that guy was always going to hit. Tom Brady last year, just a complete sleeper, dominates. Ryan Tannehill 2 years ago steps up from Mariota, dominant. Last year, Justin Herbert, not even drafted, dominant. Things like that, obviously, you can hit. But it's very hard to hate these guys. But for the sake of the video, I will be giving you guys a quarterback, and that's going to be Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, right now, he's coming off the board as a top 4 quarterback. And personally, I just don't see him finishing that high. I feel it's a little too high. He finished as quarterback 10 last season, and that's because Lamar's wide receivers are bad. Okay? I still don't think Lamar Jackson is the greatest of passers, but the issue is when he does pass the ball and it's accurate, Willie Snead drops it, or some Devin Duvernay drops it, or Hollywood Brown drops it. They need to either bring in a wide receiver in free agency, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, Allen Robinson, one of those guys, or in the first fucking round, lay the hammer down, draft Kadarius Toney, draft Rondale Moore, trade up, draft Devontae Smith, something like that. Now, I don't think they're going to actually trade up, but they need to get Lamar some weapons because while I like to joke about how Lamar is a running back, everyone does. Everyone likes to joke about that. It's not his fault when he throws the ball to the wide receiver. It's right in the motherfucker's breadbasket, right in his hands right here, and it smacks him in the dome like when Pat Mahomes threw the ball after flying through the ground in the Super Bowl, and it just hits the guy in the head. What are they supposed to do? So Lamar Jackson is in a good situation because he's going to run a lot, but the wide receivers there are grade A cheeks. Shout out to Mia Malkova. So thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out this content every single day to help you guys dominate your 2021 fantasy football seasons. I hope you guys did end up enjoying this video. The content right now, I'm not too sure what to make. If I'm being honest with you, I've just been looking, trying to dive deep into my membrane, Michael Phelps style, to figure out what to do. So let me know down below if you guys have any video ideas. I did do an NFL mock draft yesterday. Didn't get as many views as the first one, which obviously is okay. I'm not just here to get all the views. I just like doing it personally. I think making the NFL mock drafts are so fun, just trying to figure out how some things could go in the draft, because it's obviously going to be different every single time you mock it, because, spoiler alert, most people have zero idea what the actual NFL GMs, owners, coaches are going to do in the draft, and that's what's so fun about it. So I can't wait for the draft in a couple of months. I can't wait for you guys to enjoy tomorrow's video, whatever that ends up being. I do love you all, though. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, stay safe. It's been Nick, Notorious Fantasy. Follow me on Twitter as well, at NotoriousFNTSY. I know I'm a little bit rambling over here, so most people probably still not here, but if you are someone who likes my videos, please follow me on Twitter. I barely have any Twitter followers, which again, I don't even really give a fuck about. I care more about the people who watch my videos and then comment down below. I love reading the comments, but please follow me on Twitter so I can get back to over 1,000. That's all I really care about. It would mean a lot to me because I look like a biatch with 992 followers. So thank you guys for watching. I love you all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, guys, stay safe. Goodbye.